A handsome young man just snatched a broken bowl, and the next second, a man stripped him naked and pierced him from behind. He took a huge mouthful of 82 vintage phlegm. The sensation was instantly intoxicating. After a 300-round battle with the man, the abscess on the young man's back magically disappeared. After a quick cleanup, he was instantly transformed into a dashing young man. Just days ago, he was a useless hunchback. Because of his physical deformity, he had been bullied by others in the circus since childhood, and had never felt kindness from anyone. Until the appearance of one man, who changed him completely. This day, the circus was performing as usual. The hunchback could only gaze up at his goddess. Suddenly, the goddess made a mistake and fell from 100 meters in the air. In an instant, two people rushed toward the goddess. Because the hunchback studied medicine in his spare time, he could tell at a glance that the goddess had a fractured clavicle and a dislocated shoulder, which was preventing her from breathing. Victor at his side said it was impossible to treat her without professional equipment, and there was no time to get to a hospital. Seeing this, the hunchback borrowed a pocket watch, placed it under the goddess's shoulder, and with Victor's help, gave a forceful push. Unexpectedly, he really saved the dying goddess. Victor was stunned on the spot. This young man was definitely a rare medical genius. He felt that with the hunchback's great medical talent, staying here was a huge waste. But the circus owner didn't think so. Seeing that someone had discovered the hunchback's talent, he burned all of his notes and books, then locked him in a cage to prevent his escape. A moment later, Victor appeared. Looking at the shredded books on the ground, he was determined to snatch this medical genius away. He then opened the cage. This scene was witnessed by the circus owner. He rushed out, trying to grab the two. To hell with you! The fight was satisfying, but it led to a chase by the circus. Seeing this, Victor directly set their tent on fire. Just then, a strong man with a throwing knife chased after them. Then a skinny man with a shotgun blocked their path. Victor had a flash of inspiration. He grabbed an oil lamp and turned up the brightness. The strong man threw his knife at the shadow, hitting the skinny man. Next, the two accidentally ran into the horse pen. Fortunately, the hunchback was very familiar with the area. The two finally escaped through the sewers. It was the hunchback's first time in the world outside the circus. From this moment on, his destiny would change dramatically. Back at Victor's residence, Victor didn't say a word. He took out his medical equipment and walked towards the hunchback. Without a second thought, he plunged a huge needle into his back. The reason the hunchback was hunched was because of a giant abscess on his spine. Untreated for 20 years, it caused him to be constantly bent over. Victor first drew out the pus. Then, using the siphon effect, he completely drained all the fluid from his body. The easy part was done. Suddenly, Victor slammed the hunchback against a pillar, forcibly straightening his spine, which had been bent for 20 years. Then, he fitted him with a posture-correcting brace. After all this, Victor told him to make himself at home, and that from now on, his name was Igor. Igor went to the bedroom and washed away 20 years of filth. He cut away the humiliation of half a lifetime. The next morning, Victor left him a note, reminding him to be back for dinner. He also prepared a suit of clothes and some gold coins for him. Putting on the clothes, Igor was completely transformed into a handsome young man. He then took out a map, found the location of the hospital where the goddess was, and prepared to visit her. Meanwhile, a police inspector received a report from the circus. The ringmaster claimed the two stole from him and killed a man. But the veteran inspector, who had solved countless cases, didn't believe it. In just a few minutes, he deduced the truth of the case. He knew the clown had been oppressed for a long time, until someone who couldn't stand it anymore rescued him. Because the circus members were hunting them, any killing on their part would be, at most, self-defense. He then saw a drawing of Igor in the room. His intuition told him these two were not simple, so he still ordered his men to post a wanted notice for the pair. Recently, there had been a series of animal organ thefts. The inspector suspected a connection to Victor, the man who rescued the hunchback. At the same time, Igor arrived at the hospital. The goddess Lorelei was still unconscious. he saw that Lorelai's condition was not looking good. He then told the nurse what medicine she should be given, gave the nurse a gold coin, and asked her to take good care of Lorelai before leaving the hospital. On his way back, he suddenly saw a wanted poster on the wall. Igor, who had just been given a new life, was instantly shattered. Returning home, he fearfully told Victor they were wanted, but Victor said he was used to it. Besides, Igor was no longer the hunchback from before. He had completely changed his appearance. No one would be able to catch him. During dinner, Igor asked him why he had saved him. Victor excitedly explained that he had discovered Igor's talent. He was a perfect medical genius. He then took him to a laboratory to show him his work. Inside a glass tank was a pair of eyes. Victor explained his theory to him. He believed that death, like life, is only temporary. He had a way to convert pure electrical energy into a bioelectric field to bring the dead back to life. At first, Igor was a little scared, but when Victor said he had mastered the conversion method, he too became incredibly excited. As Victor turned the machine, electrical energy was transferred to the eyes through a conductive gel. Do you see? Igor was extremely excited by this scene. He then pointed out that Victor had connected the eye's optic nerves incorrectly, which was why they opened to different sizes and in different directions. Hearing this, Victor was stunned for a moment. He really hadn't misjudged him. Igor was a one-in-a-million genius. Victor then formally invited him to be his assistant in the experiment. If he was willing, the entire lab's equipment and books were his. Hearing this, Igor gladly accepted. In the days that followed, the two continuously hauled various animal organs to the basement. It turned out, the one stealing animal organs was Victor. He needed these organs for his artificial life experiment. Igor continuously optimized the nervous systems of these organs. The two experimented day and night. Soon, all the organs came to life. But Victor's goal was actually to resurrect someone important. That evening, Victor received an invitation to a banquet. He decided to take Igor to relax a bit. Unexpectedly, Igor saw the goddess Lorelai there. He wanted to approach Lorelai, but felt he shouldn't disturb her current life. Until Lorelai found Igor herself. At first, Lorelai didn't dare to recognize him. She couldn't believe the hunchback from before had now become a radiant, handsome young man. After confirming it was him, Lorelai hugged Igor directly to thank him for saving her life. She then told Igor that, publicly, she was the partner of a wealthy man, but in reality, the man was gay and spent all his time with men. Hearing this, Igor showed a look of relief. Then Victor, seeing the two, also walked over. He described his and Igor's experiment to Lorelai, but Lorelai said it went against the laws of nature. Victor's face immediately turned cold. On the way back, he told Igor to stay away from that woman. She will only hinder your progress. But Igor said the woman had always been kind to him. Hearing this, Victor didn't say much more. He took Igor directly to see the results of their research. They came to an even more hidden basement. Here, there was a strange diagram of an animal's anatomy. And on the operating table nearby, a creature had appeared. It turned out to be an ultimate stitched-together monster. All their previous research results had been sewn onto this creature. Igor looked at the absurd scene before him and felt a chill in his heart, a little afraid. Could Lorelai have been right? But as Victor switched on the power, Igor was again shocked by the scene before him. The monster's various organs began to function. Then, it opened its eyes. The two of them had actually created a new life from thin air. Igor was utterly astounded. This was no different from being a creator. Victor then said he would take him to the academy tomorrow to present their research results to the wealthy as partners, hoping to get the attention of a certain patron. And Lorelai also received an invitation from Igor. Soon, night arrived. The two began to present their work. Not many people were present, but they were all very wealthy men. They enjoyed spending money to find new thrills. After a lengthy preamble and urging from the patrons, Victor finally began his experiment. As Igor connected the power, Victor attached the plugs to the subject, but it only blew out a cloud of FLIs. This immediately scared off more than half the audience. Victor quickly told Igor to increase the power, but this attempt also failed. The patrons present lost their patience. Only Lorelei and a wealthy heir were still watching. Victor decided to give it his all. He had Igor turn the current to maximum. Amidst the heir's sarcastic taunts, Igor threw the switch. A massive current surged directly into the monster's body. The excess current even blew Victor 5 meters away. Seeing this, the heir laughed out loud. But a moment later, he was shocked. The pile of dead flesh before him actually started to move. Victor smugly went to check on his masterpiece. Unexpectedly, the monster was quite strong. It broke free from the leather straps binding it and stared intently at Lorelei. Seeing Lorelei was in danger, Igor threw an oil lamp to scare the monster away. Then, prompted by Victor, he chased after it. Out in a corridor, it seemed the monster had no consciousness of its own. Relying only on instinct, it attacked Igor directly. It dragged him down a staircase, nearly causing him to fall. Luckily, Victor arrived just in time to pull him up. Then, he reluctantly ended the monster's life with a fire extinguisher. He never thought the monster would lose control and attack people. The two had a huge fight over it. Just then, the heir walked over and stopped them. He then told Victor he was interested in this twisted technology. His family was of the highest nobility in the country. He was willing to fund their research and asked if he could create another one. Victor said not only could he create another, but this time he could create a living human being. Igor was stunned to hear this. Things were developing in an uncontrollable direction. He wanted to stop Victor from continuing, but Victor shed his usual Mr. Nice Guy persona. He warned Igor not to ruin his investment. And so, the heir invested in this evil plan. But all of Victor's mad experiments were to resurrect one person. The next morning, the inspector paid a visit to Victor's home. Igor received them and said Victor was unavailable. But the inspector directly asked if he missed life at the circus. This terrified Igor. He did not want to go back. He had no choice but to call Victor to face them. But fortunately, the inspector did not have a search warrant and had to leave for the time being. Afterward, Igor went to see Lorelei. Lorelei warned him that he must stop Victor's experiment. Igor took her words to heart. Victor was his savior and his friend. So he prepared to persuade Victor to give up the experiment. Unexpectedly, Victor's father arrived just then. He had learned that Victor was skipping all his classes, and now the school was preparing to expel him. Furthermore, his father despised his research, believing it to be heretical nonsense. He slapped him hard across the face for it, then left without a second glance. Igor looked at the dejected Victor, and the words on the tip of his tongue were left unsaid. In the end, he decided to help him create this life. He looked at the blueprints on the floor and pointed out that the previous monster's body was too weak to sustain that much energy. So they needed to create a much larger body. And such a large body would require immense energy to activate. Lightning. But it was still the same problem. Even a larger body still couldn't withstand the high energy of a lightning strike. Just then, Igor thought of a solution. They could design this new human with two hearts. If necessary, other organs could also be duplicated. After all, this was a human of their own creation. They could design it however they wanted. Next, the two modified the blueprints while drinking. They soon completed the design for this new human. Victor prepared to start the new experiment at night, but Igor said he was going to a ball with Lorelei. Although Victor was speechless, he said it was a well-deserved break. And so, Victor began the experiment alone, while Igor and Lorelei's relationship came to fruition. The next day, Igor returned home to suddenly find police at the door. Although the inspector didn't have a warrant, he was still forcibly searching Victor's house. Igor quickly entered the room through the back door and urged Victor to escape. When Victor saw he had only just returned, he blamed him for only chasing after love, leaving him to conduct the experiment alone. Now he had to overload the equipment to prevent his research from falling into police hands. He then told Igor to quickly open the secret passage, but Igor accidentally opened a freezer instead. A frozen Alice corpse popped out, startling him. Victor said it was his roommate. He died in an accident, and he didn't want to waste the material, so he gouged out his eyes and froze him. Suddenly, the inspector followed them in through the back door, intending to arrest the madman Victor. Victor mocked him for not knowing the taste of death. But the inspector said his own wife had died of cancer. He knew very well the pain that death brings. Victor tried to bribe the inspector by offering to resurrect his wife, but unexpectedly, the man was a devout believer, unwilling to accept a power that violates the laws of nature. Suddenly, Victor slammed him against a pillar, then shoved the inspector's hand into a nearby device. That was bound to be a crippling injury. The two quickly fled through the secret passage. They then went to the heir's residence. The heir wasn't worried when he heard they had injured a policeman. He arranged for them to continue the experiment in his castle in the countryside. But after this incident, Igor wanted to back out. He finally said the words to end their partnership and urged Victor to also abandon his mad experiment. But Victor had persisted for so long. How could he give up when success was within his grasp? He boarded the carriage to the castle directly. Seeing that Igor would no longer work for him, and that he knew too much, the heir prepared to kill him to silence him. He wanted his family alone to control this technology and didn't want anyone else to know of its existence. So he had his men tie him up and throw him in the river. But the heir didn't know that Igor used to work in a circus. The escape skills he learned there allowed him to survive. He then hid out at Lorelai's home for several weeks. One day, he was looking at the pocket watch Victor had dropped and noticed a name engraved on it. Henry. This reminded him of a story Victor had told him one day. When he was 10 years old, he and his older brother snuck out to play in the snow. At first, it was great fun, until they were caught in a blizzard. When the sun rose the next day, he had survived, but his brother was lost to the storm forever. From then on, Victor no longer believed in God and dedicated himself to resurrection technology to bring his brother back. Igor remembered that he was just a clown, and that Victor had changed his life. He decided to go find Victor after all, to tell him the heir planned to kill him after the experiment succeeded. Lorelai tried to stop him, but seeing Igor's determination, she decided to go with him to the castle. When their carriage reached the countryside, they found the road had been blocked by the heir's man. Lorelai went over to pretend to ask for directions, attracting the guards' attention, while Igor seized the opportunity to run toward the castle from the other side. But by then, the drawbridge to the castle had already been raised. With no other choice, he had to climb up the adjacent cliff. When he finally scaled the cliff, the sky was already covered in dark clouds. A thunderstorm was imminent. Victor was inside the castle, making the final adjustments. All the wires were already connected to the creature's body. Everything was ready, just waiting for the lightning to strike. Everyone was at their stations, working nervously. The heir had also arrived to witness this historic moment. If the experiment succeeded, he would achieve immortality. Just then, Victor went to the washroom. Igor slipped past the crowd and followed him. Glad you could make it. He then quickly told Victor that the heir was going to kill him. But Victor said he didn't care about that. When they were children, his brother lost his life to save him. Now, all he had to do was give that life back to his brother. So he had to complete this experiment, no matter what. Just then, someone outside warned that the lightning was about to strike. Victor quickly returned to the laboratory floor. The sky was now flashing, ready to channel the lightning. Victor ordered everyone to raise the subject into the air. All stations, stand ready. Then, several metallic weather balloons with conductors ascended into the sky. They soon reached the lightning channeling position. Everything is ready. Victor raised the subject to its highest point. As lightning repeatedly struck the balloons, the power reserves reached a required level for the experiment. Victor quickly ordered everyone to open all the relays. The coils linked together, encircling the subject at the center. Come alive! Under everyone's gaze, the monster gradually began to move. Seeing this, Victor revealed a satisfied smile. Suddenly, the continuous lightning strikes blew up the balloons, and the equipment below overloaded, causing various explosions. The castle was instantly thrown into chaos. The experimental platform also exploded and collapsed. The air fell into a scalding furnace, meeting a bitter end. Soon, the surroundings fell silent. Just then, the relentless inspector also found his way here. He was bewildered by the scene before him. He furiously condemned Victor's demonic actions. But Victor retorted that there is no god here, and no devil. There is only him, Victor. Suddenly, the two sensed something. They looked at the cage in the air. The cage was now empty, and opposite them, a figure stood up. He was the infamous Frankenstein's monster. Seeing this, the inspector was scared senseless. He quickly drew his gun and aimed it at the monster. Victor, however, had a look of pure joy. He walked over, trying to awaken his so-called brother. But no matter what he said, the creature didn't react. It was then that he realized the being before him was not a new life. Its empty eyes meant it had no so-called soul. So many years of effort had come to nothing. Victor was crushed. Suddenly, the inspector fired a shot. Startled, the monster grabbed Victor by the neck and threw him aside. It then walked toward the inspector and slapped him against the central iron cage. Then, the monster moved toward the others, intending to kill every living soul. Having escaped, Victor realized his mistake and prepared to end this farce with a gore. Igor threw an oil lamp at the monster to draw its attention. Victor seized the chance to stab it through the shoulder, but it didn't seem to feel pain. The monster then picked Igor up and slammed him to the ground. Compared to it, humans were too weak. Victor quickly moved in to help. Just then, Igor grabbed a cable and electrocuted the monster, paralyzing it. He then grabbed a large needle nearby and pierced its heart. Only then did the monster stop moving. Suddenly, Victor shouted a reminder that it has two hearts. The next second, the monster came back to life. It knocked Igor unconscious and then moved toward Victor. Victor raised an iron rod, and as the monster attacked, he pierced its other heart. Finally, it was all over. When Igor woke up the next day, Victor was already gone. He only left a letter for Lorelei to give to him. In it, Victor first admitted his mistakes, then said that Igor was now free. As for himself, he would continue to study science for the rest of his life. And that's where the film ends. The film is an adaptation of the famous 19th century novel of the same name by Mary Shelley. It reinterprets the story from a modern perspective. Victor Frankenstein is a single-minded scientist who walks a path of no return in his quest to create life, trying to resurrect his dead brother through scientific means. In the context of that era, such an act would undoubtedly be seen as blasphemy. The inspector in the film represents traditional faith. This kind of science has not been realized even today, but cloning technology has been around for a long time. Human cloning is not accepted by the world, and it's believed this method will never become part of our lives. The film has a great steampunk atmosphere, and the Frankenstein's monster at the end is quite stunning. As familiar faces on screen, the two lead actors' performances are, of course, impeccable. James portrays Victor's madness and obsession, as well as his genius intellect, perfectly. Daniel, on the other hand, takes on the challenge of playing the clown, and of course, does so effortlessly. In Victor's life, he represents the last vestige of goodness. Overall, this work offers one of the best interpretations of Victor's story. Highly recommended. Alright, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed my video, please subscribe to my channel. Your support is my greatest encouragement.